the deadliest invention in human history, was created by people trying to make humans live forever. Not a weapon, not a war project. A group of Chinese alchemists more than 1,000 years ago, mixing substances in search of one thing, an elixir of immortality, a recipe that would let a person never die. They failed. What they found instead was a powder that burned so violently it set their workshops on fire, burned their hands, and in some cases, killed them outright. They had gone looking for eternal life. They found the thing that would end more human lives than almost anything else we ever built. Here's what most people picture when they think about the invention of the gun: a battlefield, a blacksmith, some general demanding a better way to kill. None of that is how it happened. The first written record we have of this powder doesn't come from a military document. It comes from a Taoist text, and it isn't a recipe. It's a warning. A text telling alchemists to stop combining these particular substances because people had been burned and workshops had been destroyed. Think about what that means. The oldest surviving mention of the most consequential military substance in history is a safety warning written by people who wanted nothing to do with war. Chinese alchemy wasn't random. It was a serious pursuit backed by emperors aimed at extending human life. Alchemists worked with three fairly common substances found in nature, one drawn from mineral deposits, one from volcanic and mineral sources, and one made from burned wood. Individually, all three were used in medicine. Together, they did something nobody expected. And once you know a substance burns that fast, someone will always ask the next question: what if we pointed at something? The first real answer wasn't a gun, as you'd recognize it. It was the fire lance, a tube strapped to the end of a spear that threw a jet of flame and debris a few feet forward. A terror weapon, loud, blinding, unpredictable, and just as likely to injure the person holding it. But something in that design mattered enormously. A tube, closed at one end, containing a rapid burn. Every firearm that has ever existed is a refinement of that one idea. For a while, this stayed a Chinese technology. Then the Mongols came. The Mongol Empire did something no empire had done before. It connected China to Persia to Eastern Europe under a single network of roads, armies, and messengers. Ideas moved along that network as fast as horses could carry them. Within roughly a century, the technology surfaced in Europe. One of the earliest European images of a firearm appears in a manuscript from the 1320s, and it doesn't look like a gun at all. It's a vase-shaped vessel lying on a table, firing what looks like a giant arrow. That's the actual ancestor of every rifle on Earth. A metal vase, shooting an arrow, drawn by someone who clearly wasn't sure what he was looking at. Now, here's the part that changed everything, and it has nothing to do with damage. For most of recorded history, violence was a profession. To be a knight, you trained from childhood. You needed decades of practice and armor and horses that cost more than most families would earn in a lifetime. Power was inherited, and it was expensive. Firearms broke that. Not because they were better than a longbow at first. Early ones were slower, less accurate, and unreliable in rain, but because of the training curve. A skilled archer took years to build. Someone could be taught the basics of a firearm in weeks. That single fact dismantled a social order that had stood for centuries. Castles stopped being safe. Plate armor stopped being worth its cost. The warrior class that had ruled by monopoly on violence lost the monopoly. The alchemists never fired a shot at anyone, but the thing they stumbled onto rearranged who was allowed to hold power. So, the real answer to how did humans invent guns isn't a story about warfare at all. It's a story about people trying to cheat death. finding the exact opposite, and then, as humans reliably do, asking what else it could be used for. That's the uncomfortable pattern underneath a lot of human history. We rarely invent the thing we set out to invent. We stumble onto something, and then our instincts decide what it becomes. If you want more of the accidents that shaped us, subscribe. Because most of what defines you now started as somebody's failed experiment.